There we go. All right, welcome everybody to the first installment of 2023 of our Lead Educator Development Series. Thank you all for making the time to be here this morning. This is an hour that we set aside specifically for the Lead Educator role. We archive all of these on the Lead Educator resources page, which was sent out in the invite for this session. And we'll continue to send out those calendar invites for these Lead Educator Series sessions. And thanks for reaching out if you didn't have the invitation. It's always we try to get those caught up as we send those out at the beginning of the year and try to get them on people's calendars. But if you start after January, you may not have that. So thanks for those of you that reached out and asked for the connection details for this session. We have a really great lineup today of topics that we're going to talk about. And I think I have on here, there we go. There is our agenda for the day. We're going to start off, our training focuses around onboarding and retention and hiring. So Lisa's going to talk to us about summer interns. Carrie had sent out a reminder email about a few GMBC procedures for hiring. So she's here to answer any questions you have on that process and clarify things there. We'll do a quick idea share in the chat around promoting positions. So if you're hiring locally as a lead educator, really would love to mine for ideas for how you handle promoting and recruiting folks to those positions. And then we'll have a GMBC update from Dave, and then the lead educator briefing, or sorry, GMBC update from Pat, and then lead educator briefing. Dave's got some topics he's going to talk to us about today too. And then as always, we end with questions that you have, or what do you need right now in your lead educator role from those around you or those that serve you. So I'm going to kick it off and shoot it right over to Lisa if you're ready, Lisa.
Yep. Thanks, Megan. When you stop sharing, I'll share mine. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to cover a variety of topics related to the hiring you're doing for the summer. I know lots of you consider summer experiences for students in your office, and we're going to look broadly at that because we know that we hire for a variety of reasons. So there are some of you hiring in partnership with the dean's office on cost share dollars. Some of you are hiring through sometimes 4-H opportunities that are out there. Some of you are hiring rural fellows. Some of you just are hiring what we might call just a local summer worker. And then there are other programs and projects out there. And I think that's the part here. We're going to talk broadly about any students that you're hiring this summer, some things that we would just like you to think about and consider as you're bringing them into your office. Because as we all know, bringing in other educators and assistants and support staff takes a lot of onboarding and work. And here we're going to bring someone in for 12 weeks or 3 months. And how do we get them trained, onboarded, brought into the system to help us with our work, and then exit them at the end of the summer? I don't think we've often thought about how that time frame, how fast that goes, and some things we should think about. What I want to share with you first, I thought was important, is I've been collecting data from interns for a few years now. Some of your county-based interns have participated. A lot of these are those that have worked through the dean's office. But I think there's some big takeaways in here as we all consider summer interns that we need to think about. The first one I want to share some feedback with was, how would you describe your experience? And I think these are some really great ways that we've given students great experiences. So this person said, I would describe this internship experience as interesting. It was definitely not what I expected it to be. And if I were talking to someone that likes to stay busy and always doing something, I would not recommend this to them. Right. So I've shared some positive ones and I've shared some that we should learn from. So if you're having a summer intern, these students feel like they should have something to do. And I know, and not that's hard to plan every day of the entire summer. So I'm not asking that you necessarily do that, but that there's a conversation with these students that it might be super busy and there's times where it might not be. And what are some things to fill time? What are some projects I can be working on when I feel like I have downtime? This internship has been incredibly eye-opening. My horizons for a career have been opened greatly. I have met so many new people, built so many new relationships, and improved my skills as an employee. My experience was unique. I got to do so many different things every day. I walked into work every day without knowing what would happen that day or who would show up. That non-routine experience was great from a mental health standpoint and an opportunity-wise. So there's kind of a flip side of that, like maybe not, I'm glad I didn't know what was going to happen every day or what to expect, but we have a lot of students who have great things to say about the experiences they have in your offices, that they're rewarding, that they love the idea that there's something new every day. But yet there's a tone under all of these of, I still want to know what to expect. And so that's on us to help prepare them for that and to think about what we can do to manage that time for them. Some challenges they identified was finding things to do sometimes. And so how can you think ahead to maybe create a list of when they have downtime, what's something they could go to do? Where are the projects that are sitting to the side that can be picked up when there's either no one around to tell me, or I have this downtime to fill. This one was about not being able to do as much meaningful work as they thought they were going to do. This person said, because I was in 2 counties that already had another intern, I was more spread out and was not used for workshops, just did a lot of busy work. That would be improved by making a more set schedule of the county that I would be in and what I'd be doing. And so just know, some guidance, some planning, some preparation is going to be one of the best practices we talk about. Students kind of know what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, and this idea that they want to come to do meaningful work too. So we know that we hire for a variety of reasons, right? Some of you might be hiring someone to stuff envelopes all summer, and that's okay, but make sure they're aware of that. Make sure they understand that. If you're hiring them to have a career experience, then they need to be given things to do that give them a career experience. And that may be working in workshops or teaching programs themselves. Multiple challenges during my internship. One difficulty was jumping into a job I knew nothing about. Another challenge was being new and learning the ropes of the job and what was expected of me. So once again, right, 3 months, how do we do all that in a very short period of time? And this particular person wanted to work more than 40 hours. And we know that sometimes we need them more than 40 hours, but I'm guessing Carrie's going to talk about these positions are 40 hours. And so you have to manage that time with them and figure out and let them know up front, it's only 40 hours. And when are the best 40 hours for you to be with us? And there are times of the summer where that has to be managed much differently. You know that. And so when is it best to have the intern at fair? When is it not? When are they actually helping us? And when is it that those hours could be put aside for other times? And so once again, we need to be intentional with letting interns understand that we don't do overtime and that we can't do that. And so that they understand that they're going to be held to those 40 hours. Wish I would have known how slow the work was at the beginning before we started getting ready for fair. Once again, here's a timing thing. How do we find some things for them to do early on so they're not sitting around for a month before we get to the fair activities? I wish I would have known my duties, what they'd be more day to day, what I was going to do exactly. I was confused as to what was expected of me or what I should do. I don't think we really want any of our interns feeling that way. So what's the conversation about that up front? Greatest lessons is that I learned something, is that it's not the same every day. And I put this in here just for my own self-satisfaction because nobody tells me I'm right very often anymore. But Lisa told us during training, and I honestly didn't believe it at first, that every day would be different. After my first week, I realized she was right. So there's my one moment of being right, everyone. But some students are very surprised by the fact that every day is going to be different in these offices, and you have to prepare them. Some of them, that's very uncomfortable. Some of them loved it. Just like all of us, right? The greatest lesson was how to work with people and how to interact with people. That people skills are one of the best things a person can have. So when we're giving them the opportunity to build people skills, we are helping them develop themselves. And as we all know, this job requires a lot of patience. And so those students also felt that and saw that. And that communication is key to having a successful workplace. We all know that. I don't know that we're all examples of that all the time. I've had some students say, this office could use some better communication. This office could work on communication. So work on how you can be an example. One thing I'd change, a better idea of what I'm doing each week. A more set schedule. They didn't like the unpredictability of our jobs. Planning ahead. What is it I need to know? So once again, some of those same things keep coming up. And so what can we do? I think you should approach every student that they're learning about extension as a career. No matter what you have them there to do, we really want them to work side by side with you, but plan for the independence. What can they do on their own? Because we know that just having them shadow you every moment of every day is not going to work. Help them learn the role, what you expect of them. What do they bring to the table? Some of them said, I said that I had this experience and I never got to use it. And some will say, hey, I told them I liked this and they let me teach 10 workshops about it. So get to know your student and know that we really do want to continue to think about a pipeline for this organization, especially as we move now into being able to hire some positions with a bachelor's to earn their master's. This opens the door a lot for us to think about these students as a pipeline. So some keys to that, and some of you do this really well. Some of this, having an intern just doesn't make your job easier. If you haven't figured that out yet, having an intern makes your job harder in a lot of ways. Okay, that shouldn't resist you from having a student, but you have to do the prep work. And the students they know if you have or not. So how are you planning for the summer already? What is your messaging to this student? Around the culture of the office, what our dress code is, what for the summer, what I should be doing, what to expect every day, what are the duties going to be, what's their schedule. I don't know if Megan's going to have some other sharing, but some of you have a very detailed schedule for the summer. I think our students want that and need that, knowing that it's flexible. What does training look like for you? For those of you that are part of the dean's office, you know that I expect your students to take part, but I'm opening the door to any of you that have students who would like to be part of some general training on May 23rd and 24th. It will be from 1 to 3. It'll be virtual. The first day will be background about extension, kind of expectations of being a good intern. We cover a variety of things to help them understand the system. Many of them do not know more than just the little 4-H piece that they've been a part of in the past. And we have had plenty of students apply who know nothing about extension. So we try to give them a little background about what extension is. The second day, the focus will be on youth development because most of these students will be working with kids. And then what are you doing for local training? And so I would encourage you to think about creating an experience, which means meeting regularly to check in. You have to meet with them regularly. Most of the students said, I wish they would have met with me weekly to see how the week went or to prepare for the week or talk about what next week's going to look like. Give them feedback and ask for their feedback. What did they see this week that they enjoyed, that they would like to do again? Or where did they struggle? Or what are they needing? And then, evaluate and celebrate their accomplishments. These students are adding value to your office. Make sure they know that and that that's celebrated. And don't be afraid to involve others. I know in the case of the dean's office, we want an educator supervising them, but I know that plenty of other people in your office should be contributing and helping and adding value for that student and adding duties, and make sure that they know that and that they feel comfortable going to anyone if they have an issue. I'll send all these out, but these are topics that I talk to the students about, things that we kind of expect for them. And they're very basic, but sometimes until they're told, they don't know. This happens with the educators I train currently as well. Until we tell you that we need you to have initiative, some people sit back and think, well, is somebody going to tell me when I need to do this? No. We want you to demonstrate that initiative yourself. And so we talk to the students about that. We talk about appropriate dress for the summer and to make sure they provide clarity in their office on what that means, to how to manage their time and being on time for events. Remember, they're watching you. I had a student say, hey, I show up to everything and my educator is never there. Like, I'm the first one always there. And I said, well, you need to have a conversation with your educator then. Our students should not be the example. We should be. So think about how, if this is what we want from our students, how we're doing that. And so these, with the students that come to training, these will be topics we talk about extensively. And I think this is, as we kind of wrap this up here, something that I found in the research, that there's 6 elements that have been identified for kind of a best intern program. If you're going to have students, some of the things they're looking for right now are meaningful work. So what does that mean to them? Is it they're there because they want to work with kids? because they're passionate about their home community. What is it that is making that work meaningful for them? Why did they apply? They want feedback. They want to hear how it's going, what they could improve on. They want social opportunities. Now, whether that's with other interns in the community, with people in your office, part of this is them gaining kind of a social network. And so the social piece, the networking piece goes together. They want training and they want firm connection, which means you have to get to know them. And I think over the course of a summer that happens, but sometimes we don't get started on that early on in that first month, and we wait too long, and we've already disconnected with the student because of that. So how are you going to do these things up front? A whole lot really fast. I'll send it. We can send it all out so you can see it. If you have questions about training, I'll be sending out an invite for students to be a part of that. If you would like them to be, you're going to obviously do your own training as well. But I just wanted you to know that we really, students are important to our summers. And I think they're going to be more important as we continue to think about recruitment now. And so how are we making this, pushing this even further? The last thing I wanted to share is this is not just for supervisors of interns. If you are a supervisor in your office of support staff, of assistants, we do have some training that we are putting out. We're going to do this a couple times this year. We're using the Fierce Conversations curriculum. It'll be on the Wednesdays in May, and we've chosen to do one in May. That may or may not be the right timing for all of you, but on a Wednesday for an hour and a half every Wednesday in May, there will be some sessions available for supervisors. We will do this again in the fall. May for some of you is kind of the break in between. Schools are getting closing, so you're not doing as much work in the schools. It's a break before the summer hits. And so we'll try this. I know several of you are already interested and want to join. So we will move ahead with this training. I will also send this out, and we will offer this one again in the fall. Likely these will not be recorded because they're going to be interactive. They're going to be conversations about how to do the supervisor jobs better. And I find that if you just watch recordings and you're not involved in that conversation, that's hard to make it real. So these will probably not be recorded for that reason, and for confidentiality reasons and talking about supervision and things that go along with that. So just know if these don't work, let's look at the fall dates. Thanks, Megan.
There is a question in the chat about the summer intern virtual training. Will those be recorded?
Those will likely be recorded, and so that if students can't make one or the other, they can watch them later. Those will also be interactive, but those will be recorded for students that if those dates do not work for your intern already. If your intern is starting, Carrie can maybe mention this, we can make sure a start date is prior to those training dates if they're starting after that, so that they can attend the training. Let's say they're going home for that week yet before they start in June. We can make sure their start date is identified early enough that they can participate, but that is key. I've learned that the hard way. We need to make sure their start date allows them to participate in training.
Yeah. Okay, a few other questions in the chat. One, Karen added that it's National Intern Day, the last Thursday of July each year. And this year it's July 27th. So you can mark that date if you'd like to celebrate your interns. And let's see, I think we answered that question, Sheila, about the recordings. Name tags and extension polos. I believe the answer is yes. If you'd like those for your interns, you can order them yourselves. Is that right, Lisa?
Yeah, I will check if you are part of the Dean's Office program, those will be provided, but I think last year we started providing those to other interns. I'll get the data based on budget and let you know, but in the past we have provided name tags and polos for interns. If you can keep those over the summer from some of your students for next summer's potential, that's also an idea. If they're never going to wear them again after the summer, if you can keep a stash in your office for future summers. But and yes, most likely, JC, yeah, if you have to pay for them on your own, you can still get them. But I think let me check that out, Dave. I don't know if you know, but we have provided dollars for all of that in summer before.
Even if they are not through the intern program, correct? Yeah, okay. Go
Correct.
ahead, Dave.
Correct. We would like, all interns to obviously be able to have a shirt and
Okay. Dave, did you have something to add there?
Yeah, I agree with Lisa. Just shaking my head. Yes.
Okay.
Technology.
All right, just making sure. Okay, any other questions on intern hiring, onboarding, retention, or what Lisa just shared with us?
I'll get Linda to put out a Qualtrics. That'll probably be the easiest for shirts and name tags, if that's fair to everybody. Watch for a note from Linda to be able to put that information in. And so as soon as you know students, because once again, what will be the kicker? There's some of you hire a little bit later, probably going to try and do a group thing to send that in. So the sooner you can know that information, the better. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Lisa. I will add just a little resource shout out. Last summer, Beth Janning came up with this Big Rocks planner for their interns. And I think it was a resource that worked out really, really well for them. And so I'll put Beth on the spot as far as if anyone wants to reach out to her to share that, we'll speak for her, but they went through every week and did a really nice job of detailing, here's what's happening this week, here's what's happening this week, here's what's happening this week. And it just helped the whole office be on the same page about where everybody's at, and then what's the next thing coming. And the way she organized that was just done really well. So that is one resource I do know of. If others know of resources similar to that, I invite you to throw those in the chat too. I'm right now going to kick it over to Carrie just to keep our pace going with everything we're covering today. So Carrie, go ahead, take it away on the hiring side from the GNBC HR side of things.
Sounds great. Hi, everybody. My name is Carrie Eidenmuller, if you haven't met me before. And I work for the GNBC, and I specifically cover the regions or the areas, engagement zones 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10. So I may have worked with some of you, and some of you may have worked with other GNBC staff. And I kind of wanted to talk about, I don't know, I think everybody received a spring and summer hiring guidelines email last week. And when I printed it out, I realized it was 4 pages. So it's a lot of information, and it's good information, but it might be a little daunting to kind of work through. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit and talk about our summer workers, primarily our student workers, and what we call our other hourly workers. And those are just students who are attending another university. They might be recently graduated high school students. They might be Kansas State, Fort Hays students, non-UNL students, folks that aren't a part of the university system, because that is mostly what we're hiring over the spring and summertime. So when you identify a candidate, what you would do is you would get in touch with us at the GNBC, and you would let us know who they are. If they're a student, where they're a student at, that'll help us determine what type of employee that they'll be. You'll want to let us know for sure that they're over the age of 18. If they're not, we have a little bit of work to do to get approvals before we can really start the hiring process. And then the funding piece is really important, because we have to send them out a background check, and we need to know where to build that to get that moving. So all employees that we hire over the summer, all employees in general, they need a background check. And it's really important for 4-H programming, for folks who may be working with youth. That's something we want to do to make sure that everybody's good to go, safe to start working. So that will be our first step. We'll contact them via email. We'll send them out background check information. And then the ball really is in their court to complete that. We can send them an email or a text. So it's really easy for them to start that process. We'll also need to know if they're driving. If they're driving, we have to do a second check, and that's a driver's license check to make sure that they're authorized to operate university vehicles and all of that good stuff. So that's really our first step in the process, just knowing who we're working with and why. Once those background clearances come back, then we can really get into the nitty-gritty of the hiring. And that's going to be a little bit easier this year, because we've been utilizing DocuSign for a lot of our hiring documents. So we can send the student an email, and they can complete every single form except one, and shoot it back to us via DocuSign without even having to visit the office. So if you're looking to hire somebody early who may still be in college, they can get all of this done early. The I-9 form does require that they meet with somebody who can look over and make sure that their social security card is valid, that they have a driver's license, and we can get into the I-9 stuff later when you get a little bit closer. But that is the only piece that really requires a ton of one-on-one interaction. So we can get a lot of this done ahead of time, which is great, as long as the candidates are identified and we have the contact information to get in touch with them and to start the process. So from there, once they're hired, we can do the offer letter via DocuSign, all of that stuff. We onboard them and then we'll send them out specific information when they're entered into the payroll system about how they enter time in Firefly. We can provide information to supervisors if they haven't used Firefly before. So we can make sure that hours are being submitted and approved and people are getting paid, which is always a good thing. But yes, the most important thing is that we want to make sure that all of this is done before somebody starts working. And sometimes when the hustle and bustle of things, that can be difficult. So we want to make sure that all of this is done as quickly as possible to make sure that the students are onboarded, ready to go, and they can start working. How'd I do?
Perfect.
A little bit easier to understand, hopefully. And you're more than welcome. I cover 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10. If you want to reach out to me, if you're not sure who your HR payroll coordinator is, I can connect you. If you have any questions about, hey, this isn't a student, this is actually somebody, this is my neighbor down the street. We can look at on-call type of appointments, to really see kind of what fits your needs in your programming.
So one thing to summarize, the very first step when you have chosen a candidate, chosen someone to hire for a summer on-call position, your very first email is to your HR coordinator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always a good first step. And then that way, if there's any question, some of the folks might need a physical, and that just really depends on the type of work that they're doing. If they're working with livestock, if they're doing really physical work, we kind of want to know what the game plan is in the beginning. That way we can prepare the candidate. Hey, you're going to need a driver's license check, a background, and a physical. So, let's reach out and get those scheduled, because that can delay the hiring process a little bit depending on what the needs are.
So we have a couple of questions in the chat, and Dave, I might default these to you on county hiring, so county paid intern or on-call positions versus the UNL paid, specifically the age requirements and the background checks. Those are coming up as questions. Are those required if they're county paid?
I'll just start this and I'll let Lisa and Carrie and Pat correct everything that's not right. All right. So, so when you hire on county funding, you're hiring under the county's HR policy. So follow as many guidelines as they may have, realizing that many counties will have no guidelines, right? It'll be a quick matter of just putting them on payroll with the county, and that's all they're going to provide for you. So I would encourage you to implement some of the best practices that have just been talked about and ask some of those same questions. Make sure these folks are trained, make sure you have paperwork in place before they start. All the things that Carrie and Lisa were just sharing with the group. Many times that's in our court to take the initiative to do that at the county level when we don't have that. Most of our counties don't have an HR office, right? So if you haven't ever, some of you who are new as lead educators, if you have never asked for a county HR policy handbook in your respective county or counties, ask for that from the clerk. Read through that and see what parts of it may apply to anyone that you may hire on the county payroll system.
I would also add that at minimum for your summer workers that you would follow the youth safety screening guidelines that we use for 4-H volunteers. If that is your at minimum in terms of background check, then everyone who's employed in our offices should be following those youth safety policies anyway. And so that would include our summer or temporary staff as well at minimum.
Yeah, I echo what Dave says. The question about the UNL credentials to use computers, yeah, is potentially going to be another bump in the road. But if they're UNL students, they should, Carrie, Pat, that should work. Those credentials then become their credentials to be able to access that. It's when they're not UNL students that we may have to figure that one out. And I know the other issue for many of you is a computer for them. And in the past, we have often asked students to use their own. I think some of you have planned ahead a little bit differently for that now and may have access to one for them. I realize that is another thing we have to jump around some hoops around with UNL. Dave, thoughts on those computer things?
Yeah, so think about what interns need to have access to. As you know, the last huddle, we had a whole segment on the new IT policies, so that's going to be tightening up. I wonder if we could, if the interns could have a similar status to what our county support staff members do. I mean, they're listed as volunteers or something like that in our directory. Carrie, do you know, or Pat, if that's a possibility?
May I ask? This is Ruby. I'm going to comment here.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I am working right now on the on and offboarding. It goes back to the whole thing you've learned about the security fundamentals that were being updated that you heard about here from Jane Peterson and her team. So we have there'll be new forms when you're hiring both university or county paid interns, or I should say staff, that'll provide, number one, required training that we have to have for all people who are on the university system. But it also gives them the guidelines is once they claim their email, so they're able to get onto their services that they will need. So that will be part whenever Carrie or anybody in our team is hiring somebody, you should have that to be able to get your credentials was the question that I seen. So hopefully we are finalizing, and I just sent copies, I think got the offboarding one done. But so Linda Temple and your office can put it on the website to show an example here, hopefully the next couple days, along with our team being able to send those out now when we're hiring new employees, both county and university.
Thanks, Ruby. Ruby, did you have anything else to add on the onboarding, offboarding piece?
I think the only other thing I was thinking of is looking at our university website that we have for resources for our lead educators. We have our 2016 we did the on and offboarding update, and Dave, several of you remember and attended that because of an audit that we had. So I think it'd be a good time. I'm going to go look at that and probably update it. I think it's good for us to be proactive on the on and offboarding. We know, and I just going to talk to some of our counties. I know are even going under audits from the state at their county level, but I think we're going to be seeing an atmosphere where we're going to have more auditors out and about again. We're back into that area. So I would like an opportunity to take a look at that, and maybe that's something we could do. And then there's a short session of updating that information and sharing it with all of our lead educators, just to be proactive on that side.
Yeah.
So Megan, I think that's a thing to think about as a leader in your counties is what are you doing to protect the intern, the employee? What are you doing to protect yourself and the University of Nebraska and the county that you're serving? So these things we're all talking about are all in place to protect all who are a party to those hiring situations. So all very important.
And Carrie, the one thing I think we do have is INR does require background checks on all of our positions in the system, if that is right. Yes, Carrie, thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, if you have additional questions that come up on the intern or summer programming staff hiring processes, go ahead and throw those in the chat as we keep going, and we can always circle back to those at the end as well. There's been a few questions in the chat around sharing out some of the resources of the planners for the summer, and I'll work on, I'm going to commit to working on a place to put those pieces together. So again, if anybody else has items to share, I welcome those, or let me know, and then I can start collecting those pieces and find a spot to house those. We are going to move on to our next thing, and that is our idea share, which again, I'm going to invite you in the chat for that as well, around promoting positions locally. So if you are in the hiring phase, even for summer help, or if anyone has hired office staff recently, extension assistants, in the search process at all, there was a question that came up when we were looking for what we should talk about in this session around promoting positions locally. How do you recruit folks to apply for these office positions, which, I mean, we have a similar conversation around recruiting educator and specialist positions too. So this isn't just localized to one piece, but maybe locally you have other resources that we haven't tapped into yet at the educator level. And like I said, this was just a question a lead educator had asked. What are others doing to recruit folks? So I invite you in the chat to share ideas that you have. We're going to do the idea share that way today, and we will flood those. And then again, we can circle back at the end to ask for more detail. At this point, Pat, are you ready to give our GNBC update?
All righty, I'll start off a little bit, and Ruby might have a couple of comments too, but most of mine are just reminders for everybody. One of the biggest ones is our cash handling. That will fall into that same thing with your summer interns too, that everybody's supposed to have their cash handling submitted by March 31st, the documentation. When you hire those new summer interns, though, remember that we will need to have them read our policies and guidelines on that. And the lead educator and the summer intern need to sign that form and send it in. We don't know who all has summer interns or anything, so we can't really monitor that. So we're leaving it up to you in your office to be able to get those sent in to us. It's just, we want to keep those on file as much as we can. So I'll be sending an email out probably first of next week, getting close to the 31st, reminding those counties that I haven't seen the guideline or the acknowledgement forms from yet. So there's about 16 or 18 counties yet that have not submitted their forms, their signed forms. So another thing we want to talk and remind people about, we're seeing a lot of memberships for our educators, that we just remind you that no dues or memberships can be charged to your hard dollars or salary savings accounts. They need to be used revolving dollars, and you do need to have approval from your supervisor or coordinator included with that payment, so that we've got documentation of that it's been approved for memberships. So just short reminder, we try not to have to go back and send an email each time we see something. So just remember to request those and submit them with your documentation when you send your payments in. Another thing that we've talked about recently has just come up. We're seeing e-gifts, requests for e-gifts for surveys, maybe, and be the e-gift cards, maybe through Amazon or cases like that, that rather than buying a little gift card for an incentive for somebody to do a survey or something like that, we're getting requests for purchasing e-gifts. We're working on new guidelines on how to do that because it is fairly new to us. But one of the things that we did find out yesterday, especially, is when you have to get approval for those e-gifts. If you want to use your P card to do it, it has to be pre-approved. So reach out to your GMBC team member, ask them to help you. They will submit it and get the approval for it. Then when we do that, we need to make sure that we are documenting where these e-gift cards are going and who is accepting them. So in our guidelines right now that we're thinking about putting out is we'll ask for your initial email to the recipient, and then also the email back from the recipient saying they have accepted the gift card. All of that will need to be submitted with the approval that you got for the e-card purchase initially, plus your supervisor or coordinator's approval on that too. We want to make sure that we're following all the guidelines on those, like Ruby said, because of audit purposes. We don't want that to be red flagged later on if somebody does come back and look at those and ask, oh, who got this card? Are you definitely sure who got it? We want to make sure that we've got everything in place as to where the card went and who accepted it. So if you have any questions on it, reach out to us. I know we've got a couple going right now. I just got an email from Joni that they have one that's gotten an approval. So we're working with them. Different things with all of the new people coming into the offices, either 4-H assistants, educators, or even your office staff. Just a reminder, our reference guides are out there on the website. We would highly encourage you have them, read them over, look at those. They were just updated in October. Ruby got them up there before the front door forum. Those are just so beneficial to everybody looking at those for any types of guidelines. We've got about everything we can think of in there. And then we'll certainly visit with anybody. We invite anybody to let us know when you want to have a Zoom with the office or anything. We can certainly do that. But those guidelines help to just get people on the right track starting with their financials. We've got the mailbox guideline on how we like to have things submitted for in the mailboxes. And then also just our general reference guideline, which is about 40 pages long, that we do encourage you to have your office staff or new assistants or everybody look those over. Then let's see, just remember P-card submissions. We continue to ask that things are submitted correctly into the mailboxes so that our reconcilers can grab them just right off the bat and be able to reconcile something. So use that mailbox guideline to do your subject title on the email itself, how we like to have the attachments titled, and what all we need to have in one attachment for one P-card purchase. It's easier for us to be able to go in and grab one and then move that out of our mailbox. We know it's been done. If we get multiple attachments in one email, that may sit there for up to 10 days, 2 weeks, waiting for us to see the charges coming through, and we lose some of that. So if everything is followed by the mailbox guidelines, it makes our job a lot easier to do your job, getting things back into your accounts for you in a timely fashion. So that's about that's about all I had on my notes. Ruby, did you have anything else?
The only thing I was in a note that's coming up with your using P-card when you're registering for conferences. Sometimes you're going to register for something and it's going to say membership is also included as part of that registration. So in that case, it does then fall under the INR policy for dues and memberships. So if you do happen to register for something and it says $100 for the membership, you will need to go in and ask your supervisor and get permission because that is being audited on the P-cards. So that membership piece is something they're really looking at. So I thought I'd share that, and it has come up. And as for the extension guidelines that we have available that Pat had talking to, if you go to the Nebraska Extension Employee Resources page, and then you go under your unit management and your financial management area, that is where the zone mailbox, the financial references, and so forth are located for everybody. Now, there is one more piece I'd like to develop. Hopefully in the next few weeks would be nice, is though our financial guide is more high level to tell you about how to do the policy and the procedures within our system, we also have these one-offs. How do I do an e-gift card, or how do I do giveaways? I need to refresh that information, and I don't know if it's going to call it a supplement or whatever, but I think it's more situational for a lot of the things that we're doing out in our county offices versus what the university may talk about in some of their general operations. So that's one of my goals, is try to get something like that back out there. But the other handout will give us any of your positions that basic knowledge of business. So, but thank you for the opportunity to chime in today. If there's any questions, call Pat.
I did remember the one thing too, Ruby. We do currently have a county office that is being audited, their county side, their tax side. And a question popped up. They had purchased something from Quill, and you always get your free gifts from Quill. The auditor is really making red flags about that free gift. They want to know where it's at. Is it still housed in the office and everything? So remember that if you're getting anything from any of those like Staples, Office Max, or Quill, that they throw that free gift in, we need to make sure that that's documented. And then, as Ruby even mentioned, maybe use it as a giveaway for maybe your 4-H council or something on that order. but document where it went and make sure that we can come back later and show that to an auditor. You can't just take the free gift home. That's not allowed. So something that's popping up and you know, we wouldn't think about it at all, but it's in the email. They're asking, where is that free gift? It was headphones. And they want to know where they're at. So just remember that nothing is free and to be kept personal as far as that goes. So other than that, like Ruby said, if you have questions, reach out to me. And the team members are always available too to answer anything. So just feel free to call us. We aren't afraid to answer any questions or find your answers for you.
All right, great. Thanks, Pat and Ruby. Thanks again for being here with us this morning and sharing those updates. Again, if you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat. I did add the link to that page with the financial management guidelines that Ruby was talking about that are new and updated as well. So you have that resource there. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Dave.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, the audit, another thing to remember on an audit is if you're ever contacted to audit finances in your office, contact the dean's office immediately, contact GMBC, make us aware. Want to read those audit requirements or requests very carefully. The one that Pat was referring to is only a county audit. So we're not sharing our program accounts. We're not sharing any UNL information. Is only county tax dollars. So it's sort of like an IRS audit, right? You only share what you're required to share. So just let us know if that happens to you. It's not very frequent, but it's sometimes a little bit causes some anxiety when it happens in your office. So what I'm reminded of as I'm listening to all of this conversation and details is just how much all of you do for Nebraska Extension locally and beyond. So thanks to all of you who serve in a lead educator capacity. It's a very critical, pivotal role in our system, and we could not be successful without all of you. There's no way, right? We cover a lot of territory and address a lot of issues from stakeholder engagement to funding, to personnel, to advocacy, and the list goes on. So thanks to all of you for what you do in this part of your role. I have 4 or 5 things I'm going to touch on very quickly because I'm very cognizant of our time. First, a big success story. So about 2 years ago, we started in Douglas, Sarpy County, renewing our interlocal agreements. And so we're about 2 years down the road. So currently 45 counties have renewed their interlocal agreements across our state. 15 more are in process. So if you're doing the math, that's 2/3 of our counties are well on their way to completing their interlocals. And a trivia question that you have to wait until Tuesday if you're going to be at NASEB to learn the answer to is one of our engagement zones is completely done. They're renewing completing their interlocal agreements. So we'll celebrate that on Tuesday. And for those of you working on those, the thing that has been most gratifying in that process is that we have had very, very low pushback from counties. They have been extremely supportive. In most cases, very few questions, and that's a testament to the strength, the relationships, and the trust we have with our local county partners across the state. So thanks for making sure that the smooth sailing in most counties. So EZCs, lead educators, all of you, thanks for that. Civil rights survey. So I think almost all of those are in. So thanks for gathering that data. We have not received an official notice of when our statewide audit for civil rights compliance will happen. The reason we asked you to do all of this in advance is we did not want to ask you, to do this overnight. So we want to give you plenty of time to look and see what how much of this data you had available, what examples you had, and you've done that. You've sent those our way, and so that'll make it a much smoother process for all of you once the audit happens, because we won't have to reach out to you asking for this and that in a piecemeal fashion. I think we have most of what we're going to need based on what we've heard from other states. So thanks for submitting those. If you haven't submitted yet, that survey is still open. I think we're going to leave it open through next week. So please report in if you haven't. NASEB legislative day is Tuesday. So we have meetings set up with 48 of the 49 senators, and we're gonna be batting 1,000 by Tuesday. Thanks for all the work you've done in coordinating those visits. And for those of you who will be there or have extension board members, on site. A little bit light on extension board members this year. So one thing I would ask you to do is as you're recruiting extension board members this fall, if you haven't had success in having an extension board member attend NASEB in your county, that's something you should look for this fall. And look for someone who's comfortable, who can take the time off to do so and would go with you and or your EZC to the NASEB legislative day to advocate for Nebraska extension. It's a very powerful advocacy group, and it's an expectation of our extension board members. So that can be a specific ask. So look for that kind of talent as you're looking to round out your advocacy group folks on your board. We are at a new site this year, new venue. So we're at the Scottish Rite Masonic Center. That's what we're basing our NASEB event out of. That is just about 2 blocks directly north of the Capitol. And this year you'll be wanting to use that north entrance to the Capitol. The west one is somewhat of a maze if you walk in there. If you want to get anywhere through the west entrance, so use the north entrance. And again, you'll pick up your packets at the Scottish Rite Center. If you're there early in the morning, there's free parking right about 50, 60 parking spots right adjacent to the Scottish Rite Center. So we'll be sending out some maps and some last minute details on all of this tomorrow to all of you to just make sure we're all on the same page for next Tuesday. So it'll be a great day at the Capitol. A couple more things, dual track educator positions. We talked about this in Huddle. You'll actually see some of these positions hitting the UNL employment site next week. And so I'll be watching for those. One of the things we really have to do as a system is wrap our arms around this process. It opens up a huge recruiting door for us, both locally and with new college graduates. We're going to have to really nurture these folks to help them work on their advanced degree, to be successful in their educator positions, et cetera. But it's also going to open up a huge door to inviting underserved audiences to be eligible and to be successful in our system. So think about if you're in a county where you have a growing large Latino populations, for example. We've had a lot of challenges finding Latino talent with graduate degrees. Now, in many cases, they'll be able to apply with a bachelor's degree and work on that advanced degree in the position. So something very new. We're gonna need all your help doing this. I'm mentioning it today because in your offices, your local office culture, your willingness to help those individuals, realizing they could be doing research, they could be taking classes during the workday, and we're gonna encourage that and allow that to happen, because that's the only way folks can work through this. And we've done this with a lot of educators over the years. Not through a program specific like this, but we've been very encouraging and supportive of our faculty working on advanced degrees in their positions. So this will be no different. On a similar, and if you have any questions about those dual track positions as they hit the street, let me know. You'll know when you see the headline for these positions in the advertising. The headline will say extension instructor or open rank extension educator. And if you see that as the title, it's open to bachelor or master's level candidates. And it'll put a little more pressure on search committees to discern talent and decide who's really has the best upside potential to fill that local educator role. I would ask you for some help as we have this conversation with our current extension assistants. There is some sentiment that if you're an extension assistant and you earn your master's degree, you're automatically an extension educator. That is not the case. Same goes for if you're an extension educator and you earn your PhD, you're not automatically a specialist. These are unique positions. You have to apply for them. They're open competition, and the role of an educator, and in this case, the instructor, is different than an extension assistant position. They are different. And so if many of you have been in extension assistant positions and then in educator roles, and there's a difference, right? So that's not always very obvious if you haven't been in both roles. So if you would just help us talk about how the instructor position is not an assistant position, it's a track to an educator role, and it is a faculty position. So it's not a situation where you can just migrate from an assistant into the instructor position. These are all going to be open competition. And the last thing is extension assistant salaries. So we'll be sending a Qualtrics out to all of you on this. We're in a little bit of a quandary with this. So on the eastern side of the state, we can't hire extension assistants because we're not competitive. In many cases, our support staff in our county offices are earning more than our university paid extension assistants. So I'm hearing from lead educators saying we need to increase our salary base again for extension assistants. You know, we bumped it a couple $1,000s a year or two ago. We're looking at maybe doing that again in the near future. And I know on the western half of the state, I'm hearing we can't afford to do this, and we're going to have a lot of pushback from our county partner if we try to bump those salaries again. So I'm going to send a note out to all of you just to get your sentiments on what are some options, how should we proceed with this. Whatever we do needs to be uniform across the state. So we're looking for some input and ideas on how we best approach this this challenge to keep, will attract, and to retain our extension assistant talent statewide. And I'm going to leave it there, Megan.
Dave, there's one question that in the chat that I think is a good one.
Oh yeah, yes, great question. Yes, so an extension instructor can certainly have lead educator responsibilities, but I would also look at it this way. So as you know, when we bring a brand new person into a county, let's say they've been a teacher and now they're a 4-H educator, we might not ask them to be the lead educator immediately if we don't have to. We'll give them some time to grow into their role before we ask them to be a lead educator responsibilities. The same would hold true for an instructor, but yes, we want these individuals to get the experience of what the responsibilities and expectations are for an extension educator in the county they are serving. So lead educator responsibilities are fair game.
All right. I'm gonna switch back to our gallery. There we go. And we're at the point where we open up for questions anyway. So if anyone has questions for Dave, but also we will open it up for what do you need as lead educators right now, or what questions do you have?
Dave, just to follow up on that. So I understand giving them time, but like if they're filling the role in a single educator office, will they automatically be expected to do those lead educator duties, or will the interim still step in, or is that a case-by-case basis? Just thinking through some of those things.
Yeah, another great question. It's the latter, and that is be in consultation with the lead educator, the engagement zone coordinator, and the lead educators in that region. I would hope we could give them some support and help in growing into that role, and that we wouldn't ask them to do it all, but we could maybe divide and conquer. But it will be case by case, depending on the the capacity and of the candidate, the local situation, and what kind of help we have around us in that particular county.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, I was going to insert a little bit. I know we're getting close to requesting our ratings for our evaluations for our extension assistants and other people that are funded through the university. So I just thought, hopefully in the next week, some of that information will be out. But I have seen the merit forms that we've asked in the past as those responses will be due to. We're still working on the process. By March 31st is when that information will be turned in. But I thought, Dave, if you wanted to share anything more on that.
Yeah, I would just say we're probably going to ask for an extension on the deadline because we really need to get through NASEB before we put that out there for our lead educators to address. So I haven't studied some of that local interaction we've had very closely yet, but that is coming your way.
Other questions from the group or things you need right now as lead educators? Thanks, Kathy, for the shout. If you have ideas for next topic or topics for next time, I guess, I would invite those in the chat as well. We'll meet again June 22nd at 11 o'clock. And so if there are things that you know are coming up or you're anticipating, we typically around that time do start to have conversations around budgets, budget development. So that might be one thing we touch on then. But again, as things come up in the next couple of months, feel free to reach out to me and let me know what you need, and we will work those into these sessions. So thanks for being here all. I'm going to stop the recording, and then I always stay on in case anybody else has questions they want to ask that they would rather not have recorded. So thank you.